What's going on, y'all? Forward Fabian Horror back again with a video. I'm doing a reaction to 3 disturbing true horror stories proven to be real from Nightmare Files, man. Be sure to like the video, comment down below, let me know what horror content y'all want to see. And yeah, man, subscribe to the channel. Full steam ahead.
Some years ago, my 4-year-old stepson Robbie had a birthday. We got him a few presents, along with cake and ice cream. That day, my husband and I began to notice that Robbie had issues. He went crazy over a toy car being the wrong color by slamming it on the table and cursing at us. After that, his behavior became more aggressive and it scared us both. But one day, my husband was called to a school where he was at pre-K. Robbie was hitting other students with toys and he hit one student with a chair. Because of that, he was kicked out. His behavior became worse, so we admitted him into a psychiatric hospital. We felt bad, but we also felt like we didn't have any other choice. So to move forward, Robbie got out, and when he did, he changed. He used to be a happy-go-lucky kid until he was mad, but the happy-go-lucky kid was not there anymore. At this point, he's older, bigger, and stronger. He was physically intimidating to me. One time I told him to do a chore and he didn't listen to me. He got in my face and he told me that if I told him what to do again, that I would regret it.
Well, dang.
There were so many times when he would disobey me. So Robbie's sister, my oldest, she got a job at a restaurant. And she believed that Robbie was stealing her tips and her cash from her wallet and her money stash. So one day I approached Robbie about it, as he was walking out of the house with his book bag. I asked him if I could see inside of his bag and I tried to get it from him. He wouldn't let go and we began to tussle with the bag.
Uh-oh, he finna beat you up.
By doing so, I accidentally scratched his face with my wedding ring. We both stopped immediately as I apologized. He looked extremely angry. He grabbed his bag, walked up to me very close and said, "Bitch, if you ever touch me again, I'll kill you.
Dang.
I'll record it, and I'll give it to my father." That same day, he told his friend's father in the school that I abused him. He really wanted me out of that house because he wanted his real mother to come back. He also told his friends that the only way that this is going to end is with me in a body bag.
Wow. So this fool blatantly saying all this type of stuff to you. You're the stepmom. That's just the utmost disrespect. It's like at that point in time, I couldn't, like, how can you live under the same roof with somebody? You know what I mean? There's always the stories of the ungrateful stepchild, or, you know, that just doesn't know how to mesh well when things change. They pout, they cry, "Oh, I want my mommy back." It's like, bro, grow up a little bit. Relationships don't always work out.
A few days later, while he was at school, I saw that he carved something on his dresser. It said, "Kill her."
Wow.
In that same dresser, he had a collection of pocket knives.
He ain't hiding anything.
That was the last straw for me. I went to my husband and I told him that I didn't feel safe and that Robbie has to go. We called a psychiatrist and let her know that Robbie couldn't be trusted in the house anymore. She let us know that we have to call the cops in order to get him out of that house, so we did. I felt so bad about it, but they came and they took him. The way he looked at us as he left was horrifying. So we visited him weekly in the group home. Over time, we tried to figure out what was wrong with him, but no one could figure out what it was. When we visited him, we noticed that he began to enjoy drawing, and he was really good at it. I never knew he was a good artist. But the thing is, the pictures were of the family being killed by him. So 4 years went by of him going to a psychiatrist and nothing changed. It actually got worse. He hated me. And I knew at some point he was going to be released from the group home. And the only place that he can go was our house. And the only thing that I thought was the right thing to do was for me to leave. So I left and we got a divorce. With me out of the picture, Robbie went home to his dad after.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, this is the kind of expectations or things that you kind of encounter when you deal with somebody with a previous kid, right? But you thought you had the love of your life, a new love, and y'all's whole relationship deteriorated due to the fact that he got a crazy kid. Wow, y'all got a whole divorce. What a waste.
After being in that group home for 5 years, I kept in contact with my ex-husband, Ronnie. When Robbie got back, he was under a strict routine every day with his dad, and he was doing better. But once he turned 18, he moved out on his own. He had a job, a girlfriend, and his own place to stay. Everything was okay. Well, that's what we all thought. On December 5th, 2007, I was called by my ex-husband. He was crying and he said it's true. It was Robbie. I didn't know what he was talking about. What happened is that there was a shooting at the West Roads Mall. Robbie entered the mall, and he went into Von Maur department store, and he killed 8 people. Then he turned the gun on himself. That whole situation broke my heart, and it scarred my family along with those who were killed. I will never forget what I went through with Robbie because I could have been one of his victims.
Yeah, you could have.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp?
I don't understand how it gets like, what is the issue? Some of these kids just their mental just snaps. Like, I don't get it. But mental illness is a real thing. I'm not going to sit here and, point the finger. But, man, a lot of kids nowadays just aren't mentally tough. They're not mentally inept, bro. They're just not there. Like, I'm not going to compare my trials and tribulations to somebody else. But I learned to just get through it. Keep pushing. Keep trucking along. Some folks, I got to kill myself. I got to kill everybody around me. And I just I can't put myself in those shoes, because when it gets extremely bad, I know I can turn to my faith. I know it's not the end of the world. But I guess these are just children and individuals who have no belief system. They think that they got to take everything in their own hands, and it's a sad sight to see, no lie.
When I was in high school, there was this one boy in my class who was very weird looking. Most of the other kids were afraid of him, and everybody kept out of his way. He always kept to himself and never spoke to anyone. His name was Craig, but we gave him the nickname Crazy Eyes. He had the strangest eyes you ever seen.
That boy got
They
wild
were
eyes.
large, round, bugged out, and disturbing. They didn't look human. It was as if they belonged to some sort of exotic reptile, like a chameleon or a lizard.
Belong to the streets.
During class, he remained completely silent, never asking or answering any questions. I got the impression that the teachers were scared of him as well. All he did was stare at everyone with his bug-out eyes, creeping them all out with the unsettling gaze of his. One Monday morning, we had a media class. The teacher split us up into groups and gave us the task of making a short film. Due to the luck of the draw, Craig was assigned to our group.
Craig.
While we gathered around and discussed ideas, he kept his mouth tightly shut, and he just stared at all of us with his big-ass eyes. We eventually came up with an idea of a slasher movie. The plot involved a crazed killer who goes around the school stabbing people. Craig was so odd-looking that we all decided that he should play the killer. His crazy eyes made him the obvious choice. As it turned out, the movie was a huge success. We managed to create a 5-minute film that looked almost as professional as a Hollywood horror flick. Surprisingly, Craig did a great job in his role as the killer. We shot
He's a
hours
natural.
of footage of him stalking the school grounds, running from tree to tree. He was armed with a fake knife that had a retractable blade. Then we filmed him stabbing a bunch of kids who were all playing victims. They were soaked from head to toe with fake blood. Taking part in the movie really seemed to bring Craig out of his shell. He took to acting like a fish to water. When filming was complete, we all noticed a big change in his personality. Somehow, it boosted his confidence, and although he still didn't talk very much, he held his head up high and seemed more sure of himself. On Friday, when we screened the film for the entire class, they loved it and started chanting, "Craig, Craig, Craig." That day, he was the most popular kid in the class,
Uh-oh.
and he seemed to revel in the attention.
Went to his head.
However, when Monday morning arrived, Crazy Eyes Craig was nowhere to be seen. He didn't show up for school, and nobody seemed to know where he was. And for the rest of the week, he was absent from school. That weekend, I was at home, working on an assignment for school. I overheard a report on the news about an attempted murder that had happened in our town. Shocked, I glanced up from my work, and when I set eyes on the picture they were showing on a TV screen, a chill ran down my spine.
It was Gregory.
It was Craig. His humongous, crazy eyes stared at me from the TV screen as the news reporter continued with the story. Apparently, he had been stalking his next-door neighbor. She was a 16-year-old girl named Leanne. She, her younger sister, and her mother had been home alone while her father was away on business. The two girls stayed up late to watch a horror movie on TV. It was Nightmare on Elm Street. During the movie, they started to notice something strange. They opened a box of cereal and took 2 bowls into the living room to eat. But when Leanne went back into the kitchen, she found that the box was empty. When the movie finished, the girls went upstairs to get ready for bed. Leanne opened her bedroom closet and found Craig standing there, holding a hatchet. He was dressed in her mother's clothes and had makeup smeared all over his face.
The hell?
He told her to be quiet and he tied her up.
He said, shh.
Then he fetched her mother and sister and marched them back into the bedroom.
Gregory!
He tied them up as well, and he left all 3 lying on the floor. He told them he was going to kill them and he'd be right back, so they had better start praying. The police said he went downstairs and ransacked the house,
Hell no.
and he stole valuables. When he was gone, the youngest girl managed to wiggle free. She jumped out of the window and ran to the nearby house. Within minutes, the police were breaking down the front door. They ran up the stairs with their guns drawn and found Leanne and her mother lying hogtied on the bedroom floor. There was no sign of Crazy Eyes Craig. The police freed the mother and the daughter before conducting a search of the entire house. They combed the place from top to bottom, but couldn't find any trace of Craig. It was as if he had vanished into the night. In fact, nobody had any idea where Craig was. And while he was still at large, no one in town could rest easy. The incident was a huge shock for our small town. Before that, it had been peaceful. Nobody ever locked their doors. And that night, I watched my father screwing 2 sturdy deadbolts onto our front and back doors. On Monday morning, it was the talk of the school. None of the kids could believe what had happened, and everyone was terrified. At the back of the school building, there was a huge forest, and rumors spread among the kids that Craig was hiding in the woods, lying in wait for more victims. Some kids were too scared to show up for class. Leanne and her family stayed with relatives for a few days to get away from the house. And all that time, law enforcement combed the woods and searched house to house, but nobody could find this crazy-eyed maniac. Eventually, Leanne and her family had to go home. As soon as they pulled into their driveway, they saw something that terrified them. Craig was standing at an upstairs window, gazing out at them with a smirk on his face. The girl's father started yelling. The neighbors came running over. The police were called, and within minutes, they were surrounding the house. A SWAT team were readying themselves beside a van, loading their weapons and studying the layout of the house. They searched the house from top to bottom, but they didn't find Craig anywhere. Instead, they were confronted by a disturbing scene. Pennies were glued to the ceiling. There was strange writing all over.
Bro, what's
the
up with
walls.
all these criminals and these weird ass what do they call it? Their whole forte, or what's it? Their trademark, or their MO. I forgot the term, man, but like these criminals and all these weird ways of being weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was gluing pennies to the wall. What?
All of their clothes had been cut to shreds. The entire contents of the kitchen fridge were neatly arranged on the living room floor, and the whole place reeked of urine and feces.
Smell like
The police
booty plug.
conducted another thorough search of the house, but it turned up nothing. Just when they were about to give up and go home, one of the cops mentioned that he thought he had heard a faint noise when he was in the basement. He said it sounded like it was coming from behind a washing machine. The SWAT team immediately reorganized and they descended cautiously into the basement. With their guns drawn, they pulled the washing machine away from the wall and curled up in a hole behind it. They found Craig. As it turned out, the truth was much more disturbing than anyone had imagined. Leanne and her family were horrified. For 2 whole years, Craig had been living in their walls. They found peepholes everywhere.
The boy.
Leanne and her family had been sitting at home, watching TV, eating dinner, taking a shower, getting dressed, and going to the toilet, and sleeping peacefully in their beds. Craig had been there the entire time, silently, watching them, with his crazy bugged out eyes.
It turned out that fool's a whole weirdo. Now, was this a true story or nah? I was waiting for the video footage to pop up. Yeah. Like Robbie McCormick's.
I grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty sketchy at times, but it wasn't as bad as the east side of
Oh,
my
this
city.
the hood, ain't it?
I live on the west side of Cleveland. In the early 2000s, I was a teenager and I had a very close friend. I'll call her Lisa for this. Lisa and I were always together, but she also had a friend who would be with her, but I was pretty new to this area, but I wasn't close with her. Her actual name was Gina. So Lisa and Gina had a close relationship. That is, until Gina went missing. Gina, along with a few other people in our neighborhood, went missing at the same time, well, at least around the same time. It was sort of a big deal, and we all were part of search parties. I always went with Lisa and her dad. After Gina went missing, I would always go over Lisa's mother's house or her father's house with her. They were separated, so it was 2 different houses, by the way. Her father always had parties and barbecues, and I even spent the night over his house with her. The thing is, his house was pretty weird. We always thought it was haunted. Throughout the night, I would hear footsteps, babies crying, and doors open and shut. What freaked me out the most about his house is that he had multiple doors that had padlocks on them, and we weren't allowed to go in the basement. People in the neighborhood made up rumors about the house. It was said that there were women who were brought outside with chains around their feet or around their ankles, and they were put into this van in his backyard from time to time. I didn't believe it because he was such a nice guy.
I recall, I think I read this story. Bro had sex slaves in the basement. I think somebody had been held captive for over 10 years. Imagine, bro. A decade. Nobody knows what happened to you.
Then there was this one day.
Don't breathe.
He came off kind of suspect to me. I went to one of the corner stores after school to buy a pop, and as I was leaving, Lisa's dad pulled up next to me. He asked me to get in his truck so I didn't have to walk home. What he doesn't know is that my mother had recently told me to stay away from him because of the rumors. Because of that, I told him that I'm fine. He insisted that I get in his truck. He told me that Lisa was at his house and he'll take me to see her.
So, I don't care.
He must not have known his own daughter's schedule because I knew that she was still at school. She had something to do after school. I told him again that I was okay and I could walk. And then he pulled up in front of me. He got out and he came onto the sidewalk. I stopped and he touched my arm while telling me that I don't need to be afraid of him and to come with him. By coincidence, the cops were turning the corner and he took his hand off of me. He walked away and he pulled off. But I never told Lisa about what happened for a few years until everyone found out something very bad. One day while Lisa's father was out running errands, a lot of people surrounded his house. It was a lot of people from the street, and then the cops came. What happened is that there was a girl named Amanda, and she escaped from his house, along with her young daughter. Once the cops showed up, they figured out that there were 2 more people in the house. One of them was our friend Gina. She had been missing for 10 years. The story made national news. My friend's father's name was Ariel Castro. He kidnapped Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, and he held them captive in his house for 10 to 12 years. I'm so glad I didn't go with him that day. And I always wonder, what would have happened to me if I got in his truck with him years ago?
Hell nah, this fool's having babies with him and all type of stuff. Weirdo. That fool is pretty weird. Ariel Castro, man. So there you have it. 3 disturbing true horror stories proven to be real. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this in the comment section below. Let me know additional content recommendations you guys have for the horror channel. And we'll catch you in the next one. We out.